Book review, and this is Self-Defense for Non-Experts by Joe Bloke. It's pretty standard stuff. That's the type of illustration you get in there. It kind of loses its way a little bit, just in that it starts off by saying it's two black belts in karate who are having a chat. They realise that they don't really know what they're doing for having a legitimate scrap to defend themselves, and they go on this thing to educate people through this on what works and what doesn't. There are some bits where they've got, like, that is their idea of defense. So, this posture just here is their go-to sort of an alert and ready, as opposed to having an actual fence up. Different people may probably make it work. I wouldn't recommend that immediately because you're to yourself and you're actually holding onto your arm, but whatever. If it works for you, it works for you, and if you've worked it, then that's great. There's a couple of things like that where they show some graphs. My problem is, it starts off just basically having a common sense approach to keeping yourself safe, which is always good, but it does kind of go off on one in that it brings up grooming gangs in Bradford. But the problem is, physical self-defense is useless against that type of thing. I've just recently done a whole bunch of child protection and things like that, including online human trafficking courses. The physical defense techniques you would use are useless against someone who is essentially brainwashing you. It hits heavily on these Muslim and Islam groups doing this. It doesn't mention Operation Bloke, which took place in Bristol, which was primarily white men in their late teens and early 20s. That doesn't get mentioned. I don't know if the authors were not aware of it. It's just reading some of this, it was quite uncomfortable that it came across very much like promoting a right-wing ideology. I don't know, that might be me projecting, I might be reading more into it than there was, but if we just stick to his protection against being groomed for gangs, then you need to tell actual protection. I'll do another video on that at a later date. But essentially, monitoring what your children are engaging in, monitoring yourself, knowing this doesn't seem like a legitimate, obviously round-the-round day-to-day conversation where they're bringing this up. Lots of little things you can do. The physical aspect is useless for an online brainwashing thing. It doesn't really go into a great detail of what to do physically either. They mention their weak version of the fence. I'm not a fan of it because, again, you're like this, where you're completely closed off as opposed to having a physical barrier that they've got to get through. If my left arm is by my side and my right hand is grabbing my own left elbow, I've got nothing to gauge the range. If I've got a lead hand out, look mate, just stay where you are, yeah? If I've got that, then I can gauge. I know that if this hand is touching you, then my rear hand is in line to, it's in range to take you off the planet. If I'm doing this while I'm talking to you, I've got no real range finder other than my own perception, which could be wrong. Depending if you're short-sighted, long-sighted, you're wearing your glasses, or you're wearing your contact lenses, there's a whole thing to that. If I'm doing this, I can feel you touching that hand. Again, it's my own take on it. It seemed like such a great idea. Self-defense for the non-expert. Joe Bloke, clearly a pseudonym. He mentions in this, I think it's actually two of them that wrote this. They mention this is for the non-expert, this is for people who don't really know what they're doing. My concern is it goes from this is how to defend yourself to then almost coming across as you've got to get rid of people who weren't born here. That's what this comes across as. I wasn't happy reading it. I read it all in one day on a shift at work. It's weird, like there's a chapter on domestic violence, and for some reason, rather than being, okay, here's what you do, here are some numbers of people who can help you, here are some things to do, wait till your partner goes to work, change the locks, get the police involved, wait till your partner leaves the house, go to your friend or your family and get the hell out of there. They go into this weird story about a lesbian Canadian couple who, one of the women had a prosthetic penis, the other woman didn't know that her boyfriend was actually a woman with a fake penis, and that And at no point do they go over any type of self-defense thing. It's purely, this comes across as, this is a straight white British guy who doesn't like the world changing around him. Yeah, it goes into how and the legal system does tend to lean towards protecting women over men in these types of matters. However, it's not as one-sided as this book tends to make out. This book is not good across the board. They try to get political ideology over, which has no context. It doesn't have any contextual bearing on the book. They try to get self-defense techniques over that don't have any bearing on the actual situation they're talking about. Few techniques they do have don't really apply. There are easier and better things to go for than they suggest in the book. So you don't need to buy it. You can if you want. If you want to give it a go, it's. I mean, it goes into as well. Page 70, just there, just flicking through it. When Michael Brown was shot by a police officer in Missouri, the USA, in 2014, it generated widespread civil disorder and a great amplification of the Black Lives Matter campaign. I've read many self-defense books by guys like Jeff Thompson. I've never been aware of him going into political ideology of playing the race card, because it's not needed. Be aware of everyone around you. Avoid the stuff that looks dangerous. If someone's here, get your fence up. If they touch this 3 times, wallop them and run. The colour of your skin has no bearing. Your sexual identity has no bearing. This book, I'm not a fan of it. I don't think you need to buy it. I won't be recommending it for you, and I don't recommend it right now.